Carmel, Indiana, 1992. At the height of the city's expansion, Indy's biggest small town was bustling with new development. It seemed like the perfect town, the idealistic example of the American dream. And in the house of Carmel High School senior Chaucie Quillian, the story seemed no different. She was the second child of Phil and Janine Quillian, who ran a successful housing development company that serviced the city. She seemed to have it all, a wealthy scholar athlete playing 3 varsity sports for the newly expanding Carmel High School. It looks like the perfect life from the outside, but in this case, there's more than meets the eye. There was something about Chaucie that just didn't add up, and in the final days of her senior year, Chaucie released the shocking story that could never be forgotten. Chaucie Quillian had been sexually abused from the time she was 10 up and through her time at CHS. She had been raped, hit, and forced to commit sexual acts on a daily basis. In a later filed police report, Chaucie claimed that the abuse was as common as eating breakfast in the morning. She couldn't stop her father, and finally fed up with the abuse, Chaucie took matters into her own hands. She came out with her secret and ran away from her abusive father. While living with a friend, Chaucie alerted police of her situation, and Phil Quillian was arrested. After nearly a year-long trial, the jury never agreed on a verdict, and the trial ended in a hung. Phil Quillian pleaded guilty to 2 counts of sexual abuse and walked away with only 6 years of probation. The result and lack of a serious punishment hit Chaucie hard. She fell into a state of depression and left the city. A year later, on Christmas 1995, Chaucie took her own life. Today, a charity stands in her honor, bearing her name and bearing her message to the Carmel community. Chausie's Place is a prevention center for victims of domestic violence and sexual abuse.
For this program, we got the opportunity to sit down with Toby Stark, Executive Director of Chausie's Place, to talk about the origin of the charity and sexual abuse in Carmel today.
Chausie's Place was created as a child advocacy center that did forensic interviews, and those are done in response to an allegation of abuse. So a child would come to Chausie's Place if there's an investigation, either by law enforcement or Department of Child Services. We would conduct the interview, and all the members of that child's team, the prosecutor's office, Department of Child Services, law enforcement, they would gather around a table and watch the interview. And the whole point was to reduce trauma to the child. So the child only has to tell their story one time. About 5 years ago, Chausie's Place started to shift from responding to allegations of child sexual abuse to preventing child sexual abuse. And that's what we do today, is prevention of child sexual abuse and youth suicide. Sadly, Chausie's experience could certainly be repeated in our community or any community. What we are hoping to do in partnership with this community is reduce that risk. To reduce the risk and lower the number. That's every single day we have to push to educate more people so we can lower that number and lower the risk.
So as time ticks by and the city keeps changing, some of the major problems, like sexual abuse, that face our city persist. However, with the hard work and support of charities like this one, created as a result of Chausie's story, things are getting better. And although she's no longer with us, Chausie's influence still lives on today. This story might be hard to hear, but at least a little good came out of a terrible situation. JD Arland, CHTV News, Carmel.